You've been part of several budgets. You've been right in the thick of it. I want to ask you, do you recall any other time during your long career, including especially in the Ministry of Finance, where in a matter of 3 weeks, practically, the scenario seems to have changed, the estimates seem to be changing, and more importantly, expectations and the animal spirits that drive any economy, they have been impacted in a very short period of time due to the third wave. And what Madan said in terms of the ideology and the very concept of the budget changing, do you think that is what is actually playing out inside North Block right now?
Well, I would say that, this is the third wave is something which is something which we have never seen. This kind of an interruption in the budget preparation process. See, we start the process 2 months before. So the numbers we start, getting into, and we finalize expenditure at least a month before. So then it's about the last month when we look into various other issues which crop up. But this kind of a Omicron kind of a third wave did not hit us at any point in time during my budget preparation. So this is something very, very new. As far as philosophy is concerned, yes, we had grappled with some problems at some point in time about when the 2009 crisis, when we were trying to whether to continue with the benefits which we are giving for reflating the economy, should we continue with that or not? That was something which kept on for quite some time until the last about 25 days. But barring that, I don't think we ever had this kind of a issue. And philosophy change, it is just not possible, because once you start laying down the philosophy for the budget, which is about 2 months before, it's not possible to change the philosophy unless you have some very, very critical and important happenings which have taken place and which requires resources to be diverted elsewhere or resources to be put into some other place. Then that's a different issue. That has never happened in my time.
Mr. Gopalan, one quick point. What kind of budget would be ideal in the current economic situation? We still need to support growth. We need to do much more for job creation. And there is obviously inflation that's also been inching up gradually.
Look, all these are very important aspects to be looked into during this budget. But inflation is slightly a different thing, except on the supply side, where we try to do something to ensure that the supplies, are not prevented from happening by any other method, any other means. That is something we'll be very cautious about. So supply side enhancement is something which budget should do based on the programs and promotions they do through various departments and various institutional structures they prepare or they create at that point in time. So these are all things which can happen through the budgetary process. Otherwise, inflation is something which is a different phenomenon, altogether. But the budget also has a philosophy on what do we do? Do we look at the inequality? Do we look at the consumption improvement at this point in time? Or do we see that the export infrastructure which is required to be beefed up to take advantage of at this point in time when exports can really go up? These are all things which are looked into, and I think by this time all those things will be under the belt, and they would have had extensive discussions and then created a few openings for that.
Well, clearly it's not an easy exercise for the mandarins in North Block. Kaushik, coming back to you, it's very clear that one of the key possibilities at this stage, and once again I'm saying this with the hope that it doesn't pan out like that, but if we head towards more restrictions on economic activity, inflation is possibly going to respond in a way which will be positive, but not given the circumstances. What do you expect from a macroeconomic point of view, given the situation now? And I know it could change 2 weeks later, but I'm still asking you to give us a forecast.
No, Siddharth, you hit the nail on the head, and I started by saying the budget has to be such a way that it supports growth, but it doesn't stoke inflation too much, because at the end of the day, if you have inflation, it hits the poor the most. So you're giving with one hand and taking from the other if inflation goes up by deflating the real income. So you need to be careful of how you decide to spend the money. So the government has been, stressing more on capital expenditure. In this year, the capital expenditure is up 30%, the budgeted number, 5.5 trillion. So I would expect the government to put more emphasis on capital expenditure even in FY23, because that also has a big multiplier impact as far as job creation is concerned. And the center will also push the states to spend as much as possible on capex, because we know that the state capex has more multiplier impact on creating jobs. So I would assume that the targeted support, the demand-driven support, will only be given to the needy and people who need relief, not for the entire, economic class. So they'll pick and choose where they need the most, and then the major thrust will be on capital expenditure, both from the center and state.